Okay, let's dive in. Today, we're doing a deep dive into a really recent and, frankly, quite unsettling true crime case. It seems to have grabbed public attention pretty quickly. Our mission, really, is to understand the intricate details, pull back the layers on what's known so far about this incident down in Jacksonville, Florida.
Yeah, and our sources for this, well, we have a recent news report from True Crime News that's dated July 8, 2025. And alongside that, we've got specific details from the Jacksonville Sheriff's Office. Their arrest report, mainly. It gives us an initial picture, but it's definitely a complex one. So our task, like you said, is to sift through this early evidence, these accounts, which, well, sometimes they might conflict, to really get a handle on the known facts versus what's still up in the air.
Right, and at the center of it all, two people. Journee McGrew, she's 21, and Waduta Woodley, who is 41. Oh. And McGrew is facing, well, a murder accusation. So let's start right at the beginning. What actually triggered the police call in the first place?
Okay, so this was early hours, July 2nd. Deputies in Jacksonville get called out to Manotac Avenue for a possible dispute. But what they found upon arrival immediately set a pretty grim tone. Waduta Woodley was discovered deceased. He was behind a stairwell, and the cause appeared to be multiple blunt force injuries. The arrest report goes into some detail here, emphasizing, a large amount of blood under him. And not just there, but also on the walls and the ground outside the home. It really paints a picture of significant violence.
And in the middle of all that, investigators find something else, something right on Woodley's chest that must have just stopped them in their tracks. A piece of paper. And it read, "Pedo touches children." Written in, get this, green highlighter. I mean, that's not just another piece of evidence, is it? That feels like it throws a massive curveball into everything right away.
Oh, absolutely. A note like that found on the victim, it instantly shifts the entire investigative perspective. It screams personal motive, maybe suggests a history there. It implies the crime wasn't random, but maybe stemmed from some deep-seated conflict or, well, an accusation. It puts the why front and center from the get-go before they've even really started interviewing. Jacksonville Fire and Rescue pronounced Woodley dead right there at the scene, and later the autopsy confirmed it. Death by multiple chop injuries. Ruled a homicide, officially.
Okay, so you've got this incredibly disturbing scene, this really provocative note. How do investigators even begin to piece things together when faced with something like that? What's the first step? Where do they even start looking for answers?
Well, that's where the careful, methodical police work comes in. The very first thing is always securing that scene, right? And then executing a search warrant. They need to gather forensic evidence, anything that might explain what happened. And in this case, what they found inside the residence started to tell a story. A pretty disturbing one. Investigators found bloody footprints. They led from the doorway straight into the bathroom. And inside the bathroom sink, they located a metal hammer. And it had blood on the handle.
Wow, okay. A hammer in the sink?
Yeah. And another detail, quite compelling, a sink drain plug. This was found in Journee McGrew's bedroom. It also tested positive for blood. Plus, other items covered in blood were seized: a pair of Crocs, a black tank top, sweatpants. And maybe tying back to that note we mentioned. They also found a pink notebook. It had loose paper inside and one green highlighter.
So all these forensic details, they're not just random items. They really start building a sort of narrative, don't they? A chilling glimpse into those moments, the immediate aftermath inside the home. So with this initial picture forming, what did investigators do next? How did they proceed with questioning?
Well, patrol officers had already detained Journee McGrew right there at the scene. And WJXT-TV reported something interesting, kind of striking right off the bat. As she was being detained, McGrew's immediate question was whether Woodley was still alive.
And then when she actually spoke with the investigators, her side of the story, her alleged statements, they introduced a completely different angle, didn't they? Of something deeply personal.
They certainly did. McGrew told investigators she claimed that Woodley had been sexually grooming her since she was 8 years old. She also stated that on July 1st, the day before the incident, she texted Woodley, told him she'd been having sexual fantasies about him, and then invited him over. Her account goes on. She said Woodley tried to initiate sex, but she refused his advances and asked him to leave. And then, according to her claim, as they were walking towards the entrance, she grabbed a hammer and then struck him with it.
Okay, but here's a really crucial point for us and for you listening. WGXT-TV specifically reported this. McGrew's claims, these very serious allegations about being groomed and assaulted by Woodley, they haven't yet been corroborated. There's no independent evidence backing them up at this stage, and that's vital for staying impartial and just focusing on the reported facts as the investigation currently stands.
Exactly. So right now, the charges Journee McGrew is facing are second-degree murder and tampering with evidence.
It's just, this case is incredibly complex and carries such an immense emotional weight, especially when you juxtapose the hard physical evidence found at the scene against, well, the accused narrative, which remains uncorroborated for now. It's such a stark contrast. It really highlights how layered these investigations can get.
Absolutely. And if you think about the bigger picture, this case is almost a textbook example of the challenges you find in true crime investigations. You've got the initial findings, the forensics, things you can see and test, concrete stuff. But then that meets these deeply personal claims, often unverified at first, which introduce a whole other dimension, a whole different potential reality. The legal process now, it's likely going to zero in on finding corroboration, finding more evidence, either to support or to challenge these claims. That's what will shape how this whole incident is ultimately understood.
So it leaves us with a pretty profound question, doesn't it? What does it actually mean for justice when you have these allegations of severe past trauma right at the heart of a defense, but they remain uncorroborated, at least initially, by the immediate evidence? It really makes you consider the implications, doesn't it? How do we navigate these complex, really emotionally charged cases, especially in the public eye, when understanding the truth relies on weighing forensic facts against claims that are, as yet, unverified? Something to think about.